Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. As was tradition, on the last night of our trip to Castle Tradett, they hosted a memorable event. This time it was a play. The play was Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, and the wind seemed to understand its role in the play that evening as it rustled through the branches stirring up the fairies. Ian told me it reminded him of some of their enchantment family walks in the Windhaven evenings in Kenya, especially with his father. I knew the basic story of the play. It would have been difficult to get through the schools I attended and never be exposed to any classic Shakespeare play, or whomever actually wrote it. This was the celebration of the wedding of Duke Theseus of Athens and the Amazon queen, Hippolyta. Magda suggested that if we substituted Africa for the Amazon and London for Athens, then we could cast Ian and Jay in the lead roles. The play opens just 4 days before the wedding and Theseus is impatient while Hippolyta is in a dream. While strolling around town, as dukes sometimes do, Theseus runs into Aegeus and his young daughter Hermia. Aegeus tells Theseus, "She loves this bum named Lysander, but I say she must marry Demetrius because I made a sweet deal for him." We thought Krista could play Hermia and that Guy Florin had sprayed by the skunk squad could be Lysander. Who would be Demetrius, the bid-winning suitor, and Aegeus, the auctioneer father? I whispered to Cheesy and he replied, "Let's go with Henry Tradett for Demetrius and my dad, Count Laszlo, for Aegeus." Krista is being sold to her brother by Cheesy's dad. Ignore the fact they're brother and sister perhaps. A little poetic license, I said. Aegeus then proceeds to invoke an ancient law before the Duke that commands the daughter to marry his Guy or she must be terminated. Theseus modifies the offer a bit to provide Hermia with what he thinks is a way out, which is to choose lifelong chastity as a nun worshipping Diana. Cheesy noted, "I'd stand way back if I was going to make that offer to Krista." We had to stifle a laugh at the thought of Aegeus's safety, especially for his vital parts. Hermia and Lysander decide to make a run for it to his aunt's house, but Hermia tells her bestie Helena, who has always had the hots for Demetrius. He's in fact her ex who broke up with her to be with Hermia. We thought perhaps one of the toxic twins could play Helena. Holly would definitely be my choice for Helena. Errol voted. Helena tells Demetrius about the plan and he follows Hermia and Lysander to win over Hermia. Meanwhile, Peter Quince and his theatre group plan to put on what they describe as the most lamentable comedy and most cruel death of Pyramus and Thisbe at the wedding of the Duke. Who would be Quince? I asked. Uncle Sandu, do you want to be Quince? Magda asked and he replied, "Certainly, that's a good part for me." Who will be my bottom? Quince's prima donna was an actor by the name of Nick Bottom who was to play the main role of Pyramus, but he believed he should be given multiple characters to play simultaneously due to his amazing skill. Errol jumped in, "I nominate Richard for Nick Bottom," and we agreed he was a good choice for anyone's bottom. I'd love to see him in a donkey head. Cheesy volunteered, "Is there an interaction with Heidi in the role?" Quince insisted that Bottom can only play the role of Pyramus and tells him that he would stink as the lion and get them all killed. Besides, good old Snug needs the lion's part because lions are not his specialty and the lion is all roars. Henry would make a great Snug. Can we have him play 2 parts? Cheesy said and we had to laugh, at least those of us who knew him. I thought Henry made a better Demetrius, so I volunteered Hylia toxic sidekick Extremely Lucky. They had to agree that was a better choice. The actors agree to meet at the Duke's Oak later, but in the meantime, Oberon, the king of the fairies, and his queen Titania, have come to the forest and Titania tells Oberon, "Listen honey, I plan to stay all weekend for this wedding." But things hadn't been good between Oberon and Titania because she refused to give him her Indian changeling for use as a minion. She tells him to "Forget it, dude." Those were some meaty parts, the fairy king and queen as well as the Indian changelings, so we had to have some stars to play those roles. Sandy is tailor-made for the changeling, being Indian after all, no makeup would be required. Dick for the powerful fairy king and Dr. Sue as his queen. I volunteered. Oberon is pissed by Titania's disobedience, so he calls in Robin, Puck, Goodfellow, shrewd and knavish sprite, to his service. Uncle Sandu, who was earwigging on our conversation, suggested, "Puck has to be played by Florin. There is no one else. I must insist upon this. Or I will not be your Quince," and we all signaled our agreement while trying not to disturb everyone around us. Puck concocted a magical juice from the love in idleness flower which turns from white to purple when struck with an arrow from that portly little cherub in diapers known as Cupid. Simply apply to the eyelids of a sleeping person and they will fall in love with the first living thing they see when they wake up, was printed on the bottle. Oberon had his own plans to make Titania fall in love with an animal from the forest and shame her into giving up the little Indian boy. Now that's kind of freaky in any day and age, even for the English royal family. Meanwhile, Helena was making passes at Demetrius, promising to love him more than Hermia ever possibly could, but he sends her packing with a verbal barrage of insults. I kept thinking, yeah, that could be Henry playing Demetrius. Seeing the scene between Helena and Demetrius, Oberon issued a magical juice hit on the young Athenian man from Puck. Mistakes were made and Puck hit Lysander, not Demetrius. Helena stumbles onto Lysander in the morning and wakes him while attempting to determine whether he's dead or asleep. Of course, Lysander immediately falls in love with Helena, who now thinks he's playing a joke on her. She takes off on foot with Lysander in hot pursuit. Hermia awakes and recalls dreaming of a snake eating her heart when she noticed Lysander was gone. She naturally goes into the forest to seek him out. Quince and his band have arranged to perform their play about Pyramus and Thisbe for Theseus' wedding and venture into the forest for their rehearsal, near to Titania's bower. Bottom is spotted by Puck, who transforms his head into that of a donkey. When he returns for his next lines, the other actors run screaming in terror, claiming they're haunted. Bottom is confused, so he just sits and sings a song while he waits for the others to return. His song wakes Titania, who immediately falls in love with him, lavishing him with the attention of her and her fairies, while Oberon kidnaps the changeling boy, played by Sandy. Oberon sees Demetrius still following Hermia, who thinks Demetrius killed Lysander. That pisses him off to no end, so when Demetrius goes to sleep, Oberon does his own work on him and sends Puck to charm Helena. Upon waking up, Demetrius sees Helena and both men are now in love with Helena, but she thinks her two suitors are mocking her. Hermia approaches Lysander and asks, "What the hell is up, dude? Why'd you leave me?" But Lysander claims he never loved Hermia, only Helena. A quarrel ensues, as you can imagine. Oberon and Puck decide they must resolve the conflict, so when Helena, Hermia, Demetrius, and Lysander wake, they will all think it was just a dream. Puck distracts Lysander and Demetrius, leading him apart so that all four find themselves separately falling asleep in the glade. Once asleep, Puck administers the love potion to Lysander again, returning his love to Hermia, then casts a spell over the four, hoping all will be well in the morning. Feeling full of himself, Oberon releases Titania from her spell, and orders Puck to release Bottom. Next morning, Theseus and Hippolyta arrive on the scene for an early morning hunt and find the lovers still sleeping in the glade. Theseus overrules Aegeus's demands and arranges a group wedding. They believe they are still in a dream and decide that the night's events must have been a dream. Bottom awakes and decides that he must have experienced a dream too. In another part of the forest, Quince worries that Bottom has gone missing and laments that Bottom is the only man to play Pyramus. Bottom returns and the play goes on as planned. Theseus, Hippolyta, and the wedding party watch the performance, but the performers are so ghastly bad that the guests laugh as if it were a comedy. "Poor Quince, what a flop," Errol said, being the first to show his sensitive side. "Thank you, Errol, Uncle Sandu," our Quince said. Once everyone retired to bed, Oberon, Titania, Puck, and all the other fairies entered and blessed the house and its occupants with good fortune. After all the other characters leave, Puck suggests that what the audience experienced was a dream. "What a cop-out," Errol said. "I never did like that ending. I wouldn't take credit for it if I was Shakespeare either." We cheered the performers when the play was over and strolled the forest, gardens and lawns of Castle Seltradit, which were all lit up like a fairy's glade. Small children ran about throwing handfuls of glitter at guests as they strolled the grounds. Even the performers remained in character and strolled about. Eventually the guests thinned out and Magda and I found ourselves sitting on the terrace waiting for the sun to come up.